Hi everybody, it is Danielle here with Module 2 of Coding Club. At this point, you should already have a access code for Construct 3 from me. If you haven't received it yet, go ahead and check in with me. I might have just missed it, but keep in mind in order to qualify and get an access code, you needed to have completed Module 1 and the easy peasy Google Sheet that went along with it. So no or Google form. So if you didn't complete that Google form, I can't give you an access code because I want to make sure that I only have a limited number and I want to make sure everybody who has one is using it. So with no further delay, we are going to talk about today's lesson, which is adding sprites and controlling its movement. So if you were with me in Coding Club before, you might remember that a sprite is any object that you put into your game that interacts with other items. So if you are playing Super Mario Brothers, Mario is a sprite. Coins, bricks, pipes, Koopa Troopas, all those things are sprites. The background and those weird mountain things in the back aren't sprites because you never interact with them. You just kind of walk in front of them. So we are going to pick an item to put in our game, and we're going to figure out how to make it start interacting with other aspects of the game. So today's learning objectives is to first identify what inputs and outputs are. You might be familiar with these terms, but I want to make sure you understand what they mean specifically in the context of this in the context of Construct 3. Secondly, like the title says, we are going to create a sprite and control its behavior. And just like with input output, behavior means a very specific thing here. And then finally, you're going to demonstrate a testing table. Now, one of the things I haven't been great about showing you guys is good coding and good video game design practices. So this curriculum is much better at that than I was. So one of the things, this testing table helps you keep track of things that you add to your game and make sure it works before you move on to the next thing. That makes debugging a lot easier. So our vocab words for today are input, output, sprite, behavior, and testing table. So, inputs and outputs. Just take a minute, take a look at the slide, and think about what could be an input, and what can be an output. That was a very not subtle hint. So, take a second. So, on this table, inputs are in green. Input, just think of it as data information you put into the computer. How are you telling the computer what to do? You can do that using your keyboard or your mouse, or you can even use voice commands. For instance, I have Siri on this Mac and I can tell Siri to do certain things. So all those are ways of communicating and telling the computer what you want it to do. Inputs. Outputs is any information the computer is giving back to you. So the screen, that is where your game is, and your computer is telling you whether or not your game is working properly. If it's not, that's where the error message is going to show up. There's even audio cues that can happen through speakers or headsets. And if you're playing most consoles these days, even your game controller has like a vibration input, and so you can feel your game can give you information that way as well. So all that, again, output is coming out of the computer at the user and telling the user or giving the user feedback about what's happening. So with no further ado, we are going to go into Construct. Same website as before, editor.construct.net. So you'll see that free guest edition in the upper right hand corner. If you are seeing that, click guest, and in the drop down menu there is a place to enter your access code. After you do that, go ahead and click New Project, which I'm about to do. So as you can see, I'm already logged in, and I'm going to click New Project. I am going to call my new project, and you should too, Chasing Cherries, because we are going to be coming back and making this game more and more sophisticated as we go along, and so it will be helpful if you call it the same thing, so we are talking about the same thing. As you can see, I had already changed this before. My viewport size is 1000 by 1000. So I advise you to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to show you how to change it within the game layout, but change that here, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. So I'm going to click Create. It takes a minute. All right, so now here is my layout one. That's where you start. Just think of your layout as a blank sheet of paper, and this is where you're going to start creating your game. So there's a lot going on this screen. Construct can do a lot, and so there's a lot of information this computer is trying to tell me because it's trying to do a lot of things. It can be kind of intimidating. I'm learning this along with you all. I've never used Construct before, so but I promise to take it nice and slow. And if you have any questions, you can always email me, text me, or come to Coding Club office hours every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. And you can come get help or just work around with other people. So here's our layout and here is our project. The project just lists all the things that we've added to our game so far. Right now we don't have anything. We just have this layout. Again, it's like a blank sheet of paper and this event sheet. So over here are properties of the things that you have in the game. Right now all we have is a layout. Again, I'm going to zoom out. Um, so if you remember, if you saw my digital with Danielle, you can zoom in and out by using like a pinching motion on your trackpad. So I am going to zoom out. All right, so there is my layout. That's how big my paper is. I'm going to, so I see properties over here, but this is for my whole game. I want to see what the properties of this layout are. So I'm going to click layout and it's going to tell me the size. So the size of my layout is 2000 by 2000. If you remember before, my viewport was 1000 by 1000. A viewport is just kind of the window that you are looking through to see your game. So, if you're peeking through a window, you can't see the whole room. You can just see like this little narrow thing. So I'm looking through a 1000 by 1000 window, but my game is 2000 by 2000. And that's going to be a big pain later. So what I want you to do is to match your layout to your viewport size. So hopefully you changed your viewport to 1000 by 1000. Now the size of your layout is going to be 1000 by 1000. All right. So that just made it a little bit smaller. So I'm going to zoom in again using the little pinching motion, and I should be good to go. Just in case, if you did not change your viewport size, you can do that here by going to, again, make sure your layout is highlighted here. Go to Project Properties, click View, and then right here is your viewport size. Again, a whole lot of information, but we're just focusing in on that narrow thing. So we have our layout. We know that the window we're looking through is the same size as the layout. But right now, we're not looking at anything because we haven't put anything here. So I want you to double click this white layout and we are going to create a new object. At this point, when you started this, the instructions in the Google assignment was to download 2 image files, those .png files. If you did not do that, pause this video and take a second to go do that now because you'll need those now. Okay, so I'm assuming that you have downloaded your files already. I'm going to add, so we're going to go to this general, and we're going to add a tiled background first. I'm just going to slap this on here. It's going to look not great. You can take time to make yours look nicer if you want to, but I'm going to do a tiled background first. I'm going to add insert, and now my cursor has changed to these little crosshairs. I'm just going to pick a spot like this upper left-hand corner, and I get my tile editor. You can draw your own tile, keep that in mind for future games, but today I want you to use that diagonal image that I sent you. So if you go to Open, which is this file folder looking thing here, and then click Diagonal, and it has a whole bunch of numbers after it. So there's my tile. Now I'm going to click this X, and you see my tile is where I clicked it. It's also now listed over here under my project. So this is just a list of all the resources that I have. If I want, I can tile my whole background, or my whole layout rather, with these tiles. Again, like I said, I'm not going to do that. So it's going to look a little bananas right now, but it'll be fine. Now, I'm going to add a sprite, because a tiled background is just an object. It doesn't interact with anything. It's just there to look pretty. So I'm going to add a sprite so we can make our game start doing stuff. So click sprite, click insert, and again with the crosshairs I click anywhere on my screen and I get now the sprite editor, which is the same editor as the tile editor. Today, you are not going to draw your own sprite. Rather, you are going to go again to loading an image, and you're going to load the car that I gave you before. And then again, I'm going to click X. All right. And now you can see how huge this car is in relation to my layout is bigger than my paper. So I can just use these resizing blocks and I can make my car smaller and I can move it anywhere I want to. So, you can make your car look however you want. It can look like a little VW Bug. It can look a little sleeker by stretching it out. I'm going to make mine teeny tiny. All right, so I have my weird looking background with my three tiles. I have my sprite, but I haven't told Construct how I'm going to tell that sprite what to do. So now we're going to do two things. One, we are going to add inputs. We are going to tell we are going to tell Construct how we are going to communicate with our game. So again, double click the white space, and this time scrolling past general down to, oops, did I miss it? Inputs. There we go. So gamepad, keyboard, mouse, touchpads, or touchscreen rather. So today I'm going to click mouse, even though we're not going to use that today, we'll use that later. I'm going to double click the white space again, scroll down, and this time I'm going to also click keyboard. So in the future, we can communicate with our game using our keyboard and a mouse. So right now we have inputs, but we haven't connected them to that sprite yet. So that's where we add behaviors. So think of this as your child. You're going to tell your child what kind of behavior you expect. So my car, I expect it that when I press the arrow keys on my keyboard, I want my car to move with the arrow keys. That's the type of behavior I expect. So I am going to either select sprite here, or I can just click it here. And once I do that, the properties that jump up here are the properties of the sprite. Okay? So again, a whole bunch of information, but today we are only focusing on behaviors. We are going to add a behavior to our car. So I'm going to click add a new behavior, and these are general ones. I'm going to go to movements, 8-direction movement. I expect that when I move the arrow keys, my car will move in a corresponding direction. So I'm going to click that, click add, and now I've added a behavior to my car. So right now we're just looking at the paper or our workspace, and this, if I'm pressing the arrow keys, nothing is happening because this is the workspace. If you want to preview what your game looks like, you're going to click this preview button. It takes a second to load. All right, so this is my space, but now this is previewing my game. This is where I'm going to test that the car does what I expect it to do. Okay, so like I said, we are going to test, so that should be a hint that it is now time for testing tables. You're going to go to the Google form that is part of this Google Classroom assignment, and you are going to go ahead and fill out this testing table. Now, here's the test. That you press the left arrow, you expect the car to move left, and then what your actual outcome is, okay? So take a second, work up to this point. Remember, let me close this out. In order to get to the preview, you're going to press play, okay? All right, so I'm going to show you what happened when I do my test. So I'm going to press preview. Again, I'm going to wait for that screen to pop up. So on my testing table, I needed to make sure that when I press the left-hand arrow, it goes left. When I press the right arrow, I expect my car to move right. Down arrow, I expect it to move down. Up arrow, I expect it to move up. So my test, I tested the left arrow. My expected outcome was that the car would move to the left. And my actual outcome, my car moved to the left. So what action do I need to take? None. It works. Yay. So I did that for each of the directions. Now, that image window test, I want to make sure that my car stays on the paper. So I'm going to drive to the edge of my image window, and oh, my car's gone. So that makes it a little bit hard to play a game. I was able to bring it back, but can you imagine if you were in an arcade and you started playing a game and something just walks off the screen and you don't know where it is? That shouldn't happen. So my expected outcome was that it was going to bounce off my walls. My actual outcome was that it just drove right off. So I need to take some type of action. So what action I'm going to take is that I'm going to add a behavior because my car doesn't know what to do when it runs to the edge of the screen. So again, I'm going to click Sprite. I'm going to go down to behaviors. So we still have our 8 direction arrow here. We need to add a new behavior. So I'm going to go down to, oh, okay, bound to layout. Okay. So what that's going to tell my sprite is that when it reaches, you can't leave this yard, young sir. Um, so it's telling my car that it has to stay on the paper. So I just added that new behavior. I'm going to click X, and then now I'm going to click preview again. All right, it had a reload, so my car is back at its original position. So now again, we know that my arrows work. So now I'm going to drive to the edge, and what happens? It stops. I can't get it to move further than that. So yay! My testing table, everything on my testing table works. So that's all you have to do. So go ahead and submit your Google form so I can see how your testing table worked out. And if you want to goof around, experiment, I'm sorry, if you want to experiment more with Construct 3, please do. Make sure, oops, almost forgot, make sure you save. So this tickles me. You all probably don't even know what that is because I'm an old person. That is a disk, an actual physical floppy disk, even though they were actually very rigid, that you would put into your computer in order to save things. Now we have flash drives and hard drives and cloud storage, but make sure you save is what I'm telling you. And you save by pressing this outdated image. So save, you can call it what you want. Make sure you save it somewhere on your Chromebook that you can get to it. So any file folder that you know is easy to get to, go ahead and save it so that we can work on it next week. And then feel free to either save another copy of this when you experiment or start a brand new project for you to experiment with. If you find something cool that Construct does that I haven't covered yet, come to office hours and tell me about it. I'd be really excited to see it. But anyway, I hope to see you Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Again, the Zoom link is going to be in the Google Classroom. And if not, I'll see you for Module 3. Yeah, thanks.